Right now, Liverpool Football Club feels like it's in the middle of a perfect storm. There's this whole convergence of pressures that's testing the club from every angle, from its biggest stars all the way down to its long-term strategy. So let's get into it.
And honestly, nothing captures the mood at Anfield right now better than this quote from the captain himself, Virgil van Dijk. No player has unlimited credit. I mean, wow, that's a really powerful statement. And it hints at a huge cultural shift, doesn't it? It feels like the days of guaranteed spots in the lineup, even for legends, might just be over.
So the big question is, how did we get to this point? In this explainer, we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the shifting power dynamics around the club's biggest stars. Then we'll get into the whole $125 million question surrounding a record signing. After that, we'll look at the squad's injury stress test and the high-stakes rebuild that's going on. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why Liverpool really is at a crossroads.
All right, so let's kick things off with a player who has pretty much defined an entire era for Liverpool, Mohamed Salah. His situation right now, it perfectly illustrates this new uncertainty that's gripping the club.
This was the headline that really set everything off. Mo Salah, one of the most prolific forwards in the club's entire history, was benched for 2 games in a row. First against West Ham, then again at home against Tottenham. I mean, for a player who has been the face of this club for years, that's not just a small change, that's a seismic shift.
And you can bet that this decision has kicked off a total firestorm of speculation. Yeah, he just signed a new contract, but his current dip in form, it's pretty noticeable. And that's led to all these renewed reports about interest from the Saudi Pro League. The word is, they're ready to make a massive offer if Salah even hints that he wants to leave. So why does this matter so much? Because Salah's role is fundamentally changing right before our eyes. He's gone from being the absolute first name on the team sheet, the untouchable talisman, to a player who now has to fight for his spot week in, week out. And look, this isn't just about one player. This could signal a complete reshape of Liverpool's entire attacking identity.
Okay, so that brings us to the second major pressure point, the club's record signing Alexander Isak, and all the questions swirling around that massive price tag.
£125 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. It hangs over every single conversation about Isak. And yeah, he did score his first Premier League goal against West Ham recently, which is great, but an investment of this size, it demands way more than just a few good moments. It demands consistent, game-changing impact, every single match.
And you don't even have to take my word for it. The manager's incredibly frank admission here, it really says it all. Arne Slot came right out and said the team's tactics just aren't playing to their star forward strengths. He even pointed to the team's setup and a lack of real attacking chances as the key reasons why Isak isn't, firing on all cylinders.
And the numbers, well, they totally back up what the manager is saying. If you look at this chart, you can see a really significant drop in Isak's involvement in the game. His average touches per game are way, way down compared to his time at his old club. It's pretty simple, really. He's just not getting on the ball enough to influence the game the way we all know he can.
And this is the real problem, isn't it? If your whole system doesn't fit your record signing, you've got a massive, massive issue on your hands. It forces some really tough questions. Do you change the tactics for one player? Or does the club have to start reconsidering the return on its single biggest investment? It's a seriously high-stakes dilemma.
But the challenges, they don't just stop there. Piling on top of all these individual player issues is a more fundamental problem, one that's putting the entire squad under a serious stress test: injuries.
Okay, so there is some good news here. The keeper, Alisson, is back, and that is a huge, huge boost. But the challenges are definitely still there. You've got defender Connor Bradley still recovering, Jeremy Frimpong is out, and the young center back Giovanni Leone, he's gone for the long haul.
So what happens when you have all these key players missing from defense and midfield? Well, the squad's depth gets pushed to its absolute limit. It forces the manager into constant rotations, coming up with makeshift solutions on the fly, and that directly impacts the team's consistency and, ultimately, the results you see on the pitch. Now, all of these immediate problems, they're happening against the backdrop of something even bigger, a really high-stakes rebuild. And this rebuild is facing a ticking clock on contracts and some big questions about its overall strategy.
Just look at this timeline. In 2026, a whole bunch of major contracts are set to expire. And then, just a year after that, in 2027, another wave of key deals is up for renewal. What this means is the club is staring down a series of super critical negotiations that are going to shape its core for years and years to come. And remember, this is all happening after a huge financial outlay. The club has spent a ton of money on players like Isak and Hugo Ekitike, but a lot of these new signings, they're still finding their feet. The team is still showing that persistent inconsistency, which kind of suggests that success isn't just going to come from buying big-name stars. It has to come from building real tactical cohesion.
So, what's the bottom line here? The success of this entire rebuild is basically on the line. It all hinges on whether the club can create long-term stability. And that means two things: getting those key contract renewals locked in and, just as importantly, getting this super talented but kind of disjointed group of players to finally click and play as a truly cohesive unit.
So when you step back and connect all these dots, the drama with the star player, the questions around the record signing, the constant injuries, and all that contract pressure, what you see is a club that has arrived at a really critical moment.
It really is a perfect storm. Think about it. You've got uncertainty around your most iconic senior player, Salah. You've got this massive investment in a new star, Isak, who isn't quite fitting the system. You have an injury list that's creating constant instability. And on top of all that, you've got a whole series of crucial contract decisions looming on the horizon. Any one of those is a challenge, right? But put them all together, and it creates this moment of intense, profound change for Liverpool.
And all of this leaves us with one big final question. Are we just witnessing the necessary growing pains of a successful rebuild, or are all these challenges a sign of a much more serious stumbling block? Honestly, the next few months, both on the pitch and in the front office, are going to give us the answer. And whatever that answer is, it's going to determine the future of one of the most iconic football clubs in the world.